Good morning. Welcome to Counterpoints. I didn't shout it like Sagar does, but I tried my best. So
still fired up.
Yeah, super fired up. We actually do have an awesome show for you guys today. We're going to start by breaking down everything going on with the AI hearing from yesterday. There's so much to get into. We're going to talk about a big...
We got elections from Turkey to Kentucky and everywhere in between. Some L's for Ron DeSantis, some wins and losses for Bernie Sanders, a couple of wins for Mitch McConnell. We'll get into the whole thing there. We got an update on debt ceiling talks.
Yeah, there were elections last night. There were debt ceiling talks yesterday. We've got some crazy new allegations to talk about when it comes to Rudy Giuliani. Elon Musk did an interview on CNBC and is being subpoenaed by the Virgin Islands in the Epstein JP Morgan case. Ryan, you had a scoop this week that you're going to break down for us on Turkey.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be good.
It's a wild one.
And then I'll be breaking down the Durham report, and then the one and only Ken Klippenstein is here.
Right. Ken has a new scoop on the kind of disinformation industrial complex and a new agency that he uncovered. He's finding, these are like mushrooms in a cow field. He just keeps finding new ones.
It's an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
Like, Ken, just how many agencies can he find in the Pentagon?
Yes.
Well, we'll be talking to Ken about that for sure in just a bit. But let's talk about yesterday's congressional hearing on AI, generative AI, we should say. We can put the first element up, the tear sheet up. You can see, so this was Sam Altman's first testimony before Congress. He is obviously the head of OpenAI, which has ChatGPT. So it's a big deal that he came and was grilled by the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Privacy and Technology. He had all kinds of what I would probably describe as like juicy quotes, things that, this is why he's in front of the Senate testifying. So let's start with the first of those. We'll go with A1 here.
Look, we have tried to be very clear about the magnitude of the risks here. I think jobs and employment and what we're all going to do with our time really matters. I agree that when we get to very powerful systems, the landscape will change. I think I'm just more optimistic that we are incredibly creative and we find new things to do with better tools, and that will keep happening. My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. I think that could happen in a lot of different ways. It's why we started the company. It's a big part of why I'm here today and why we've been here in the past and we've been able to spend some time with you. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. And we want to be vocal about that. We want to work with the government to prevent that from happening. But we try to be very clear-eyed about what the downside case is and the work that we have to do to mitigate that.
My worst fear is just that we destroy the world.
And this is someone who describes himself as an optimist when it comes to this stuff. So I'm curious, just to frame and set the conversation, where do you put yourself on the alarmist spectrum when it comes to AI?
That's a great question. I'm very alarmist about AI. What about you?
I mean, I'm alarmist about everything.
Well, that's true.
So what do you got? I'll be alarmed about it.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think for good reason, because we live in an era where things change really, really quickly, and it's like almost exponential technological advancements. And so, we have to be sort of alarmist about all kinds of things. But that's a good question because, yes, in full disclosure, I think both of us are like extremely concerned about rapid changes in AI. That doesn't mean that it can't be harnessed for good, but it does mean that our government needs to catch up. And that's something we've heard from a lot of people in the tech industry, Tristan Harris, et cetera, that we do not have the capability as the government right now to properly regulate generative AI, large language models, because Congress just can't adapt quickly enough. I think that's very clear. And so that's cause for alarm, whether or not you think AI is ultimately good or bad. I get all of the concerns about hampering our ability to be competitive in this space. When you have China putting lots of work into AI, lots of regulation into it too, and this potentially becoming a weapon of war. Absolutely understand that we don't want to, handicap our industry. At the same time, we don't want to destroy civilization.
Right. And my struggle with AI is that civilization has always been this kind of contest between the good and evil within all of us. And the evil is often so much more motivated than the goodness in us. Every new technology that comes out, the pioneers in it are often the scammers.
Yeah, right.
Like, how can I use this to either extract money from people, to crush my internal rivals within a country, to crush external rivals in another country? And then eventually the world kind of freaks out at that and puts in place regulations and norms to try to control things. But if it comes too quickly, then we might not have an opportunity for that. But here, so let's roll Sam Altman again from one of his other clips here.
I believe that there will be far greater jobs on the other side of this, and that the jobs of today will get better. I think it's important. First of all, I think it's important to understand and think about GPT-4 as a tool, not a creature, which is easy to get confused. And it's a tool that people have a great deal of control over and how they use it. And second, GPT-4 and other systems like it, are good at doing tasks, not jobs. And so you see already people that are using GPT-4 to do their job much more efficiently by helping them with tasks. Now, GPT-4 will, I think, entirely automate away some jobs, and it will create new ones that we believe will be much better. This happens, again, my understanding of the history of technology is one long technological revolution, not a bunch of different ones put together.
It's kind of insane, by the way, that he is the CEO of OpenAI, and GPT has been integrated into all of these different products. This is his first time in front of Congress having to explain some of this in public. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
It's a great example already of how our government is not adapting quickly enough to technology.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. That's, yes. Like, okay. Basically, they had to launch it.
Right.
And people in
like
congressional
Obamacare.
offices had to start using it and flag it for the lawmakers and be like, this is kind of revolutionary. We might want to talk about this. Now, I come down on the side of it's actually okay if really bad jobs go away.
Like the BuzzFeed aggregator jobs.
Those jobs, most jobs, and what I mean by that is, if you think back to the 19th century and you think about what most of the jobs were at that point, you've got, right now in Kentucky, there's fewer than 4,000 people working in the mines. Working in the mines sucks.
Yeah.
Automating that, or even better, getting that from the sun or the wind, or nuclear power or whatever, is better than going down into those filthy mines. All the typists, hundreds of thousands of typists around the country. Typing sucks. Nobody wants to do that. Like the fact that you can automate typing, it's good. But if people are, as a result, thrown out of work and all the wealth flows up to the top, that's a problem. But that's not a technology problem. That's a social problem and a political problem that we need to sort out. So if, fast food jobs are mostly automated away, most people didn't like working in fast food places to begin with. If those people can do something more enriching and rewarding with their time, that makes the world a better place. If those people are immiserated and thrown into poverty and made vassals of some techno state, then that makes things worse. But that isn't the fault of the AI. That would be the fault of us.
Well, or it can be the fault of AI for moving too quickly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's him on jobs. Speaking of moving too quickly, that's him on jobs. By the way, after people's jobs have already been lost to AI, again, this is his first time in front of Congress, and these jobs have already been affected. Let's hear what he has to say about elections. We can go and roll the next element.
Mr. Altman, maybe you can help me understand here what some of the significance of this is. Should we be concerned about large language models that can predict, survey opinion, and then can help organizations, entities fine-tune strategies to elicit behaviors from voters? Should we be worried about this for our elections?
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Hawley, for the question. It's one of my areas of greatest concern. The more general ability of these models to manipulate, to persuade, to provide sort of one-on-one, interactive disinformation. I think that's like a broader version of what you're talking about. But given that we're going to face an election next year and these models are getting better, I think this is a significant area of concern. I think there's a lot of policies that companies can voluntarily adopt, and I'm happy to talk about what we do there. I do think some regulation would be quite wise on this topic.
Some regulation would be nice. So, what he's talking about here, basically imagine a bot program that you can deploy at scale and that appears to be real people. We have seen attempts at that, for years, whether it's like from that little Russian agency, trying to mess with Bernie Sanders supporters in a Facebook thread. What he's saying is, exponentially advance that to a place where people believe it. And I think that that means basically the end of social media, like end of mass social media. I think you'll have Discord servers, smaller social media sites where you're interacting with people who you know are real. But the idea of a global town square when everybody suspects that every single one of their critics is a bot, and they're correct 90% of the time, you can't have a conversation anymore.
Right.
And any attempt at a conversation will only then be manipulated by whoever can afford the best bots. And most of the conversations will be bots arguing with other bots and us just kind of watching, or hopefully not watching and returning more to human interactions, like actual community, actual friends, meeting up face to face, because at some point, even Zoom isn't going to be ultimately persuasive. I think it'll be years until they can fake that. But you're going to need to kind of look in the eye of another person to know that you're having an actual conversation with a person.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's where also you get into this question of trust. So even if there are all of these lingering suspicions, I mean, it's somewhat interesting to think that in 2016, there were outright accusations from the leading Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton herself, that bots had somehow swayed the election for Donald Trump. Well, that suspicion, that lack of trust in and of itself is the social breakdown that can start to happen because of AI. So yeah, this stuff is a really big deal. As soon as those seeds are planted in our minds as human beings, whether it's person to person, person to election, person to their democracy, it's extremely problematic. And now, actually, let's roll this clip from NYU professor Gary Marcus, who also testified during the Senate hearing and just, I think, did a very good job laying
Good alarmism.
out. Here's some more good alarmism from Gary Marcus.
OpenAI released ChatGPT plugins, which quickly led others to develop something called AutoGPT, with direct access to the internet, the ability to write source code, and increased powers of automation. This may well have drastic and difficult to predict security consequences. What criminals are going to do here is to create counterfeit people. It's hard to even envision the consequences of that. We have built machines that are like bulls in a china shop, powerful, reckless, and difficult to control.
Yeah, and that goes to the point that Sam Altman was making earlier, where he was saying, think of these as tools and tools that are accomplishing tasks, not as jobs or things in themselves that are kind of thinking like people and developing ideas and strategies. And the question then is, how much do we believe him, and how much do we believe that the bull in the china shop might have its own ideas about how it feels like this china shop ought to be arranged?
I mean, NBC did a segment last week, then not a lot of other media coverage followed, about how artificial intelligence in a study decoded brain activity into dialogue recently. So it can take your brain activity and decode it into dialogue. I mean, this stuff is happening at a rapid clip. And I just think it's worth mentioning while we're on the subject that these companies are pouring millions and millions of dollars here into Washington, D.C. Yeah, you can see this on A6. Open Secrets did a really excellent breakdown of all of the lobbying happening here in Washington. In the first 3 months of 2023, they wrote 123 companies, universities, and trade associations lobbied the federal government on issues relating to AI. They collectively spent roughly $94 million lobbying on AI and other issues just from January until March. Now, it's hard to say how much of that was just about AI because these are big tech companies. So you have Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, Alphabet, IBM, Meta, some really big ones. And you can break down, for instance, that Oracle spent specifically $3.1 million on AI and machine learning policy, lobbying just in general on those. Amazon has been lobbying in this space, so $5 million to lobby Congress in just those first 3 months on issues that include AI.
Amazon really gets a pass in this whole conversation, too. You don't hear much from Amazon, but watch, Amazon will be the one that ends up just dominating this space. Because they can dominate everything else once they add AI to their matrix.
Yeah.
Look out.
Well, and so General Motors, there's some other people in this space that are doing AI lobbying that might not be exactly expected. So General Motors, obviously, that makes sense because of autonomous vehicles and all of that. The Chamber of Commerce, obviously makes sense as well, but $19 million lobbying just in that first quarter. And some of that did include lobbying on AI. Also, State Farm Insurance, interestingly enough, and some other insurance companies have been lobbying in this space. So there's just millions of dollars pouring into Capitol Hill right now. It is great that they finally hauled Sam Altman after his technology has already caused some damage to testify in front of Congress. This is technology, by the way, that, whether you're an alarmist or not, it has massive potential. If you're not an alarmist, you love it because you're like, this has massive potential. Either way, you agree that it has massive potential. So it's great that Congress finally hauled him in, but he had a private dinner with members of the House the night before. Some of this is going to be cozying in the same way that we saw Facebook and Twitter do that in the sort of early Obama era. This is not just going to be Congress like getting tough on OpenAI. There's going to be a cozy relationship to some extent. So just encourage people to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and this is one of those classic Washington arrangements where you have concentrated power behind one side of the issue.
And one company, basically.
And one company, and then diffuse opposition or diffuse skepticism. Very much take ethanol being like the very classic example where you have some ethanol producers in the Midwest who like really, really, really care about ethanol. Like that's the only thing that they care about. They spend all of their time, energy, and money lobbying Congress on ethanol. The rest of the public is like, this seems like not worth doing, but you know what? I have so many other things to do with my day that I'm not gonna turn myself into an anti-ethanol lobbyist. And so they just steamroll their way through.
Yeah.
And so you have a version of that because there isn't really a kind of concentrated opposition. It's whereas everybody is kind of opposed,
Right.
And kind of nervous, but they're not aggregated together in a way that can push back.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.